Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Power Vacuum. I'm Belmont, and this is another episode of Movie Matchup, or Movie vs. Movie, or Cinema Showdown, or whatever I'm deciding to call this. Uh, Cinema Showdown already a thing? I think that's already a thing. I was going to go with Movie Matchup, or Movie vs. Movie. I'll decide on one of those when I post it. But tonight I'm going to be talking about Robocop and the comparisons. Well, not really comparisons. Comparison. Yeah, comparison's a good word. I'm going to be talking about the 1987 original Robocop movie versus the 2014 remake, and I'm mostly going to be trashing the remake and talking about why it's not a good movie. Because it's really not a good movie, especially when you consider the roots of what Robocop is and where it came from. So, like the first Robocop movie, 1987, original Peter Weller, is kind of a satirical action comedy. It was at the end of the 80s era action star, and they really knew what they were doing. Like the future, it's the 80s 90s version of the future, where the future is more of a dystopian nightmare than the 50s and 60s version of the future, which was more of retrofuturism, hopeful. Mankind's going to go out to the stars, everything's going to be nuclear powered. Instead, it's the 80s 90s, everything was nuclear waste, and every major city was depicted as like a freaking war zone. Looking at you, Predator 2. Looking at you, Robocop. Looking at you, Escape from New York. And the less popular Escape from LA. It just seemed there was a stretch of time where we went from the future being this hopeful thing to the future is hopeless. Everything's going to be ruined. Everything's going to suck. Every city is going to be a war zone. And we're just not going to talk about what's happening in the countryside because, Hollywood didn't know or didn't care. Pick your lane. Doesn't matter. But Robocop basically is about a, real stand-up kind of guy. Back when cops were viewed as like the actual good guys, the people there that were to be the heroes, help people, save people, to protect and serve, the things that they don't really do anymore in a lot of places, especially big cities. And he transferred to this new area in Detroit and basically just gets shot to pieces by the biggest gang in the area. Not like biggest like size wise, but biggest as in like the jobs they pull, the crimes they commit. And this company that kind of runs the police was trying to put out this new big robot, and it had a massive failure. Executed a guy that threw his weapon down, that was a board member of the company that made it, and they were like, we got to sideline this right now because it's not working properly. The Ed 209, I think is what it was called. And they basically, like I said, they had to sideline it, and this other guy steps up and goes, hey, I've got this thing we're working on called Robocop, but we just need a cop that is not alive, as it were, or freshly dead, on the brink of death. They don't really explain. He's legally dead, but he has to be alive because he still has brain activity and memories. And they basically just take the center of his being, like his torso and head and brain, and they slap him in a robot body, make him a cyborg, and send him out in the streets, and he's just super cop. And there's just like lots of classic action, witty humor, and goofy one-liners, and it's a little bit gory, and it's a very entertaining and fun movie. And they decided in 2014 they were going to redo it, and when they redid it, they tried to make it a serious action movie. And you just can't make Robocop serious because the premise itself is ridiculous. You know, you got a cop that got blown up or got killed or shot up, and in the new one he got car bombed, and it's just they took out all of the satire, all of the tongue-in-cheek comedy. They made it more of a more serious. His family's directly involved in like a large portion of the movie, where in the original, once he dies, quote unquote, they family moves on because they're like, oh, this guy's dead, and they spent 3 to 6 months rebuilding him. So they didn't have any reason to stick around. They packed up because, who wants to live in a house where they lost a family member, especially like a husband or a wife, and stare at the walls that just going to remind you of them. You're going to move on. And his family moved on. Where in the new one, they use his family as like leverage in some scenes. In this one, the new one, he seems more in control of himself, and then they play with like his emotional levels. They try to do some sci-fi mumbo jumbo to explain how they're controlling him, where in the original it's just he's hooked up to a computer so we control him. That's all there is to it. He's more machine than man, and the new one tried to make him where he's physically more machine than man, but mentally and emotionally he's still kind of human. And it was just too serious. It took itself too seriously, and anyone who's a fan of Robocop, that's not what the world's about. They've got the freaking fake commercials and the fake game shows in the original one. I'd buy that for $1. I love that nonsense. Where in this one they make the reference of, I wouldn't buy that for $1, but the guy who delivers the line delivers it dead ass serious instead of over the top, overacting. It's just, I don't know. The new one fails Robocop in every way, and had maybe there been like a longer pause between the last Robocop movie, like Robocop 3, and this movie, they could have probably gotten away with it had they waited longer and targeted a whole new audience. But Robocop fans are still around and kicking and still very aware of what the Robocop universe is. So when you turn it into just this generic modern CGI action fest, it just doesn't translate well. And like there's a lot of changes they made in this one, mostly because Ed 209s, I don't even know if they call them that in the new ones, are already fully functioning robots that are in the field being deployed in other countries. They've got these like humanoid robots that are walking around like regular people, even though that's the hardest task we've been able to do with robots, is to get them to move like people. Because, our joints are very unique in the way we move. It's more of controlled falling than it is anything else. And yeah, they just, I don't know, they got too serious. I can't say that enough. It's just not that entertaining. Like, I made myself finish watching it because I was like, I was getting bored about halfway through, where I was like, here we go again. Another scene where, Joel Kinnaman is crying about being a robot, or like having to deal with his emotions of a human in this robot body, where Peter Weller in the original was very stilted and very your move creep, very robotic sounding. Like he sold it as a person being turned into a robot, or a cyborg, but being robotized, where in the new one it just felt too organic. But like they even show you that he's less of a person than Peter Weller was in the first one. Like it's just his head, his like spinal cord, his lungs, and one hand for some reason. And that hand is like visible in the suit, but it's like connected with like a bar because the hand was able to be saved, but the arm wasn't. I don't know. It's ridiculous. Like in the first one, they have a line where the guy's just like, get rid of the arm. Because the lady's like, we were able to save it. He's like, what? No, get rid of the arm. And the guy's like, I don't know. It seems like a waste. And he's like, well, did he sign the paper? Did he sign the release before joining up the police force? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, and he's legally dead. Yeah, get rid of the arm. Just we want the core, but the arms and legs need to be purely robotic so they could just, get shot to shit and not have to worry about getting damaged. Which is something that, he does in the movie. He uses his arms to block bullets and stuff because they're just pure metal. Where the new one, you'd think having like an organic hand would be a target. Like, okay, shoot the hand. You shoot the hand, that'll stop working because it's just like a regular hand, and that's his trigger finger. So like, what good would he be? What if you shot his trigger finger off? What's he gonna do? Right? He's gonna have to switch to his robot hand, which would probably be more accurate. But this one, like, I don't know, they just failed to translate this, and the fact that there's no like gallows humor or any of that tongue-in-cheek comedy or that satirical take on it, just there's no point to rewatch it. Like, I don't have to rewatch this movie ever. I rewatch Robocop probably like once or twice a year just because it's a classic movie. It's just it'll live forever. It holds up pretty well. The effects are great. The camera works great. The suit looks a little clunky, but that kind of adds to the character in a bit because it's, a giant robot character, and in reality, it would be heavy as hell, and it would have to move kind of stilted and slowly. Where the new one, it's just like he's running, he's sprinting, he's somehow riding a motorcycle that supports his weight, even though he probably weighs like 700-800 pounds because he's a freaking robot. Where the originally drove around in a squad car, which is more feasible to hold that kind of weight. But it just basically boils down to the original one was such a gem and was done so well. They originally didn't even want to do sequels, but you know how studios are and how greedy they get. Because like the first movie, the way it ends, it's kind of got a perfect ending. Robocop's here, everything's gonna be fine moving forward, and maybe they'll recover some more people and have some more Robocops, but they don't really address that. It's just the one. But the point of the new movie was that if the program was a success, they were going to start using Robocops all over the country. But it was just so dumb, and like I feel bad for Kinnaman because like it kind of stunted his career a bit. Like his next, I think, big major role was Suicide Squad, which didn't help him at all. But then he just got lucky with Altered Carbon and killed it. Because that series is, that's a good series. I might cover that sometime in the future, but there's really nothing to verse. That'd just be me ranting about it and rambling. Not ranting, because I liked season 1 of Altered Carbon. Season 2, I could probably rant about that. What the shit. But yeah, it just seemed like Robocop didn't help his career, and you had some people that were lucky, like Gary Oldman's in it and Michael Keaton's in it, and they the guy who played Rorschach from Watchmen, whose name I don't know or can't remember, but the big stars, the big names, that stuff doesn't really hurt them. But it definitely stunted Kinnaman's career because, like, they were trying to bill him as an action star. Because, he's got some chops. And, he's in pretty good shape. Especially, like, when you look at some of his other roles. He's pretty jacked. He just picked the wrong movie. Or his agent picked the wrong movie. They didn't sell it. And it wasn't great. Yeah. The original Robocop is just leagues ahead of the new one. So if you're gonna watch one, definitely watch, the original. If you want to see how they compare up, they're both on like I want to say HBO or Max or whatever the fuck it's called now. Max. Yeah, which was weird to me because I was like, isn't Cinemax Max? And then it was like, I think HBO bought Cinemax, and I was like, oh, so now HBO has all the smut channels too. But I don't think Cinemax did that anymore. I don't know. That was a joke. They used to call it Skinemax. But yeah, I'm rambling as I tend to do. But the original RoboCop movie, I'd probably give a solid 9 out of 10. The new one, I would probably give it like, I don't know, a 4 out of 12. It's not good. It's just not good. And, if you want to sit down and watch a poorly made action movie, there you go. If you want to watch a good action movie with a lot of good satire and good scenes, just watch RoboCop. The original with Peter Weller from 1987. And that's all I've got for today. Belmont out.